Now let's go behind the rock screen.
You're welcome to come on in. We'll bring out the moonshine and start telling lies and calling up the women. But no talk about racing. Come on.
The number 22T stock car and modified from Lima, Ohio, Tony Anderson. Mr. Anderson, thanks for jumping on.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to start it off real easy here. How did you get started in racing?
Oh, boy. So in the early 90s, late 80s, I was a hot rodder. Had some street cars, put motors in them, hot rod around town, got speeding tickets, typical stuff. In 1992, I bought a stock car from Keith Rawson for $500. Back then, they were more or less bombers. Just kick the windows out and patch them up. And I wasn't interested in drive. I didn't know enough to drive yet. So I kind of put a motor in, built my own engine. And Ricky Bond drove for a little bit. And then Bobby Keyser, the late Bobby Keyser, got in and raced it. And we did well with it, but it was kind of falling apart. The car needed some serious upgrading. So I was good friends with Jimmy Hutchinson, Henson's Frame and Axle at that time. And I went to him and said, hey, what can I do to upgrade this? He was one of my sponsors. He said, man, that car is junk. We need to put you in something different. And old Bobby Keyser told me, look, man, if you're going to build something, why don't you drive it yourself? So in the winter of 1992, in a stone driveway, I built a car. Between that winter and that next spring of 93, I rented a house on Harrison Avenue in Lima, and I built a car out of black plumber's pipe and still had the stock tilt wheel steering column. The key was in the same place. Had a boat gas tank in the back seat. I knew everybody's cars leaned to the left, and I didn't know why. So I took a torch and heated up my left side springs and shrink them down so my car leaned like theirs did. And I didn't know what I was doing. And I built that car, and I took it to Millstream Speedway. The first 5 races of my career, I had to rent a U-Haul trailer. I didn't even own a trailer. And Lima Land at the time was closed down yet. They weren't reopened yet, so I had to cut my teeth up there at Millstream. And we went up there, and I broke a couple things the first couple nights. You know, and the first night I went out in hot laps. So I thought, man, this is easy. I was drifting. I wasn't touching the brake. I was throttling it up, and I had a thumper cam in it, and then they dropped the green flag in hot laps, and then I realized I was way out of my league. And so I stuck with it though. I was bound to determine I really wanted to do this. And about 5 weeks later, I flipped that car 7 times, obviously because the car wasn't built properly. Then Jimmy Hutchinson stepped up again. We bought a car from Bucky Swinehart, put it together. And my little engines would, I worked 2 jobs at the time, Nationwide Auto Parts and 5 Acre Auto Recycling. And I ran a boom truck at 5 Acre Auto Recycling, and they would let me take engines, 305s, 350s, whatever. So when I would take an engine, I'd stick the same Blue Racer cam in it and sheep lifters, and I would go race it. When it expired, I would pull my cam and lifters and my parts off of it, and I'd get another free engine. And then finally, Ronnie Preen, Sr. and Jr., stepped up and sponsored us a motor. Me and my parents made a ton of I think it was snaky spoon baits, fishing baits, and we made a ton of those. And I finally won my first B main back then in the 90s. There were so many race stock cars that the B main cars didn't transfer to the A main. You got lesser money, and the top 3 got trophies. And I finally won my first B main. I think it was in 1994, and that really dug my teeth into it. Then I wanted more of that. That was pretty cool to win and get a trophy and park on the front stretch, and so then we just kept trying to improve. And in 1998, I think it was, my current car owner, Troy Breidenball, he sponsored me on my first 9-inch Ford rear end. I had GM rear ends. After the first 5 races, I rented a trailer. Me and my dad, my good friend CJ Ricker, we got some free steel, and I bought a couple mobile home axles. We built our own open trailer, and I built it high and open in the center so I could work on the car because I didn't have a garage, shop, or nothing. And we would change them 10-bolt rear ends between Fremont, Lima Land, Findlay. And at the time, I didn't want nothing to do with Eldora. And we would take the whole rear end out, 2 shocks and 4 control arm bolts and a couple brake lines, take the whole rear end out, put the other rear end in. We had welded S10 7.5-inch ring gears, ring and pinions in them. And when we went to 9-inch forward, that was so much easier than changing the whole rear end, just change the gear. And then the following season, 99, he sponsored my first roller cam. And then we really started stepping up. I won the championship in 95. It was my very first championship. It was Millstream Speedway. The very following year, it was called Flag City Motorsports Park, the same track, different owner. And I won that championship too, just from being consistent. I was never the fastest car there. Just being consistent, always finishing races, and I started really focusing on things. And finally in 2000, he come to me and he said, "Hey, me and my family are having a blast. I want to own a car. Write a figure down. I want to buy all your stuff, and you can drive for me." And I pushed the paper back to him, and I said, "All my stuff's wore out. You keep me going, you can have everything I own." And that's where me and him got started. And I've won 31 championships, and 29 of them I've won with him. I've won 700, well, now it's 707 features. Or no, I'm sorry, 407 features in 7 different divisions. And I probably won 30 or 40 of those without him being the car owner. The rest him and I have done together. There was many years I won 20 races, 25 races a year, and at a couple tracks. I wasn't counting a couple wins at other tracks we would travel off to. And nowadays we kind of backed off on traveling. And the prices of things is so high that it's easy to get yourself overextended. And me and my wife work really hard, and we're in a good spot with our home. My building, my shop's been paid for several years, and I'm not going to mortgage things and go race. I'm going to keep it within my means, and when everything runs out, then we're done. And we've had to really focus because starting last year, I lost some motors from old parts, and I lost a couple lifters and took out a couple cams. We got through that. Then I broke a 7-year-old rod in my good mod motor down Eldora, and it destroyed it. And this year it just kept bleeding over. My engine builder does great. Kevin Frischeri from Camaraderie Race Engines at Walpole. He does great building engines on our budget. And the problem with that is our budget sometimes isn't enough. And when you break parts, it can be catastrophic. And just a month and a half ago, I broke a crankshaft in the last good motor I had, qualifying at Lima, and it took everything out. Lost the whole engine, heads, block, everything. So we got some things in the fire. We're trying to put some things together. I borrowed a motor off Jesse and Zach Rush out of Indiana. It had some issues. It's still on my floor. I pulled it back out. They're supposed to be getting me some parts. We're going to go try to fix it up for them. It's their engine. And then Craig Dittman hooked me up with a motor. And lo and behold, I went out with it the first night. I put it in the car a week before last, and it dropped the valve seat in the heat race, losing the heat race. So I was a starting park and feature, and we tore it apart. My engine guys repaired the valve seat, put it back together. And we're just trying to keep our heads above water. But I do believe that a turning point's coming for us in the next 30, 45 days. We got a decent engine coming as far as we're trying to put one together. I want to get Rush's engine repaired. I think it'll run a lot better with some new parts in it, some new valve springs, stuff like that. It'll help them out. Plus, if I'm able to run for some races, it obviously will help me out. And I'm very thankful that I've got a lot of people, a lot of respect from different races. I've been doing this a long time, and a lot of help from the pit area. That really means a lot.
There's a lot to unpack there.
I know I kind of blandered on for a while.
No. You touched on some stuff that I have written down, so I appreciate that. I mean, a couple things that I think I want to start touching on right now is, though, number one, you talked about when you started in stock cars and finances, how they are. This is a conversation that I have with anybody and everybody when we talk about things. I remember being a kid and going to Lima Land. That's where I grew up, going to the racetrack when stock cars were stock cars. Now stock cars are modifieds. And modifieds are late models, and all of that's got financial repercussions with it. So what how big of a difference is it to you driving a stock car today compared to when you started?
Honestly, we pride ourselves on the fact we don't have over 12 or $13,000 in our stock car. I don't run high dollar engines. I'm currently driving a stock car I bought Todd Sherburne the year before last for $7,000, and it came with everything except for the motor.
Nice.
And we run well with it. Where it really shows is on a super heavy track or a track like Eldora. I'm sometimes not as fast as the top 5 or 6 because I just don't have the horsepower or the, you know what I mean? But I'm okay with that because at the end of the day, every year we keep running the stock class because it helps pay our bills. We don't have a lot of money in the car, and it's easier for us to make money with it. I've got a new teammate, Devin Helming. He started with us last year. He drives my other car, and he's got a lot of promise. He's a young talent, and I think he's really going to come around. And we're grooming him a little bit, and we kind of built our own modified this all season. We had Todd Sherman put a clip on it, and then my one of my head crew guys, Jerry Webster, he took it from there and fabbed the whole car, built it from scratch. So we don't have a lot of money in it. It's just lacking some motor right now, which I'm working on, trying to sell some stuff and do what I need to do to put something decent under the hood, you know. But I have a really good circle between my car owner, Jerry Webster, Neil Sterling's been my stock car crew chief for years. Keith Mayer helps us out a lot and his family. And, my mom's been around it for a long time. Since the end of my first season, she's never really missed a race. And that's 32 years. Yeah. And my wife is a huge supporter. She loves going racing. If she can't, there's no problem with me going racing. And it helps to have people backing your play, not have to fight against the grain on the people you care about when you do this. Because, I've been upside down. I've been knocked out. I've been on fire. Things are going to happen sooner or later if you do it long enough, and you have to be able to march forward. I tell everybody, keep your eyes out of the rearview mirror and just onward, and things will work themselves out sooner or later.
Yeah. So perhaps I should have asked that question differently. Do you see a difference in the stock cars? I mean, to me, it's significant, but
I think the biggest. I think the biggest difference, for years we ran leaf spring stock cars, and the guys that were doing it, racing a lot, me and several others, figured things out with them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The way they reacted, they would look like leaf spring stock cars and go out there and carry left front 5 inches in the air and dig. But I think this, I know suspensions have changed, but I think the biggest thing that's changed in that class is under the hood, the money being spent, the horsepower, the technology. I think that's the biggest difference. Stock cars are 2.5 seconds faster than they were 10 years ago, per lap. And that's a big deal, And if you're asking my opinion, I think that's where I see the biggest difference is under the hood, the money spent on the engines.
Okay. And something else you kind of talked about was the help you have and kind of the close-knit community within racing, which is something, again, like I told you, like talking about stock cars and modifieds and late models and those kind of transitions over time. It seems like this has been my interaction, and I'm just a fan that likes to go to the track. But in talking to drivers like yourself, it's really a close-knit community, and I think something that it sets aside dirt track racing from other professional sports where if I want to go to the pits on Friday night, I can come up and say hi to Tony Anderson. I just think that's the coolest thing about dirt track racing.
Yeah, it's much more personable, I think, per person, from little kids to grown adults to, I agree with that. And you get a lot of people, for example, there's a guy come back to my pit area earlier this season, a couple months ago, and he's a full-grown man, and I'm not sure of his age. They didn't know his name. He asked if his little boy could sit in the car at the race. I said, yeah, sure, He got down in the car, and he said, he was taking his picture, and he said, so what do you think, Billy? He said, when your dad was your age, I sat in the same guy's car. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, how long have I been doing this? But that just reinforces what you were saying. People come back into pit areas for years and years, and they follow certain people, and they watch races, and they can sit in the cars, and they can talk to their drivers, and they can sit down and drink a soda with them on late nights or whatever. And most of the drivers are really cordial as far as working with the kids. I personally have been giving my feature wins trophies away for the last 8-9 years, to kids in the stands or people in the pit area, and it's just part of it, and you don't see that at the higher levels, and it's hard to get these drivers, even in like the Outlaw Series, some of the bigger leagues. Sometimes it's hard to get these drivers' attentions or have a 2-minute chat with them. And it don't mean they're a bad person, just means they're super busy and they're on to the next race because they race 80 times a year. And, I race 30 times a year, so I got more time to sit down and talk to you when you come back to pit area.
Right,
But I think
right.
you're spot on that.
And it's funny you mentioned kids sitting in your car because I've been to Lima a couple times this year. The last 2 times I've been at Lima, I'm pretty sure I ended up behind the same kid in the grandstands. The kid loves you. I don't know his name. I just know when you're on the track, he's there with his dad. He is super excited to see you out on the track.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, they were lined up at the fence when we won that race a couple weeks ago over there, and I won at Montpelier about a month ago in the super stock over there in Indiana, and same way over there. Man, it just when you hear all them cheers and see all them kids jumping up and down, and it's awesome. That's not why I race. I don't race to win. I put that helmet on. I have a lot less stress in life for 20 minutes at a time, but winning the championships and all these features over the years, and that's just bonus for me. I race because I love to race. Yeah, just
Awesome.
when iRacing come around in 2020, my car owner offered trying to buy me a little iRacing rig. That's not racing to me. I don't want to do that. I get in them cars. That's a whole different world to me. That's
Yeah.
why I started doing what I did. Grew up dirt poor back in the day and just wanted to do something like that. And I got more and more serious with it, and I've dedicated half my life to it, and I love it.
It's awesome, and you've been successful at it. Like you pointed out earlier, multiple championships with the stock car, modified championships at Lima Land, 31 championships total.
31 total, yes, sir.
Out of all of those championships, is there one that stands out to you more than the others?
Man, there's because I've won them at Lima, at Millstream, at Lawrenceburg, at man, everywhere. Probably, I'm going to be honest with you, probably 2016 Lima Land because I won both. I was the first one to win both the super stock and the modified. I was driving modified at Lima for Alan Eric Austin at that time, and then I drove for my car on Troy on Saturdays, and that year stands out to me. That was a really good year for us.
And that's impressive. We talked about Lima, and I can remember. I mentioned I grew up going there, and it was probably the late '80s when I first started going there. And I can remember seeing you back in the day. I kind of wondered, you have different paint schemes every now and again. Is there anything behind that? I specifically kind of think back to the older paint schemes. I don't know why I feel like I got like a Miller Genuine Draft Rusty Wallace vibe.
That was a long time ago. Yeah, that was I my whole life I've been a huge Rusty Wallace fan. And Bob Davis from Dynamic Signs used to paint my cars, freehand them. And he come up with that paint scheme one year, and I absolutely loved it. And that was man, that had to have been, I'm going to say that was mid to late '90s. I think late '90s. I can't remember the exact year, but yeah, I know exactly the year you were talking about. I was hooked up with the Reynoldses out of Duffus.
Okay.
Todd and his brothers and his dad and Jack Reynolds, and yeah, that was that car. Yeah, I remember that. My favorite car was probably 2003. It was the last year. In 2001 they started allowing people to have aluminum bodies. I was the last holdout. I was still going to the junkyards in the winter and skinning bodies off cars, and it was the last year I had a steel body in my car. And Bob Davis freehanded lightning bolts on my car. I loved it. It looked wicked. It showed up great in the pictures, and that was 2003.
That you mentioned this, and they can do a lot today with the wraps. I mean,
Oh
they
yeah,
can wrap these cars and they look sick. But you're talking about the freehand painting, and I mean, forgive the sprint car fan in me, but I think of like tail tanks, where
mm-hmm.
they used to like freehand uh,
Right.
the numbers on them, right? And they would do like the gold inlay and the flake and all that stuff. And you talk about you had freehand paint done on your cars as well. A lost art.
Yep, I totally agree. Yeah, Scotty Bowersock was a local guy. I used to be wicked. I'm sure he still is. I just don't have it done anymore. But he painted a couple of helmets for me freehand. Man, they were awesome. I know Kurt Wilson with Wide Open Graphics. He does all our wraps down. They look amazing every year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one of my favorites is the wrap this year. And then 2 years ago we had a pink, pink and white layout, and I got a lot of compliments on that year too. And Kurt does an amazing job. Him and his family do these wrap. They wrap tons of cars. They get really busy for several months in the late winter and early spring. And but he does a great job for me now. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I think the wraps honestly help hold the body together. The aluminum bodies. I think it helps. I don't like some of these guys probably put new body panels on every 3 or 4 weeks. Number one, I can't afford to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But number two, I don't want to mess with that. I'm too busy trying to figure out how to make my car go faster than the guy next to me. And so when we put these wraps, we use a thicker material, and it really makes the body hold up a lot longer.
You talk about. I'm kind of curious about this, and I don't know if it's there or not. But you talk about trying to go faster than the guy next to you, and I can't help but think about all the discussion there's been about traction control and other forms of things you shouldn't be using on your car. Is there anything that you think's going on in the stock car world that you're not a huge fan of?
Well, I don't know about traction control. I'm sure it's a high possibility it's out there somewhere. But the thing I'm not a huge fan of is these engines. It's the money being spent on these engines. Now, if you have traction control, it may help you on a super dry slick track, which I just had to be a really good dry slick driver. A lot of my wins over the years have come on dry slick situations, but it's not going to help you when the track's heavy. So if you're that fast when the track's heavy, that has nothing to do with traction control.
Hmm.
That has everything to do with horsepower under the hood in your $20,000 or $25,000 engine. If I got a problem with anything, it's probably less traction control and more the money being spent under the hood.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely hear you there, and I can't help but notice you repping the Dirt Track Truck Series shirt.
Oh yeah, Andy's cool, man. He does a lot. Yeah,
Andy's a good guy. Yes.
yeah. We got hooked up a few years ago, and some people probably don't realize this, but several years ago, he was on my race team for a couple of years.
Okay.
Yep. And then he raced stock cars, and he when he started this dirt track truck series a few years back, he started because there was trucks out there and they had no place to race.
Mm-hmm.
And he has done a tremendous job putting this series together. And I drive a truck for him whenever I'm available or the racing a track. I've had my modified or my super stock at, and I love it, man. I love getting in that thing, going out there and racing, and there's a lot of good drivers out there in that class. I think the class has really stepped up last couple of years, especially people stepped up their game and they've learned things but Andy is the truth behind all of that. And I don't think any of that would be around if it weren't for him in his work.
Yeah, so the reason I talked to him was I ran into him at it used to be the Piqua Mall. I think it's now like the Piqua Event Center or something to that effect. But, there's a car show there every year. I think it was in March, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran into him there and I talked to him for a little bit and he told me a story about what, like you explained, why he started the series. And I mean, that's the stuff you love to hear. I feel like, I don't know if you know Greg Watson with the USEC Midwest Thunder Midgets, him and Chuck Taylor. But that's
I know
kind
Chuck
of the
Taylor.
same,
Yep.
that's kind of the same premise for those guys is like,
Mm-hmm.
we want to have a series that guys want to race, they can afford to race. And I love seeing that.
Yeah, Chuck Taylor is really dedicated to that whole deal for sure. I know that for a fact. Yeah.
So you've got a few wins this season, Limeland and Montpelier, and I've read that Montpelier is your favorite track. Is that true, and why?
I really like Limaland. Um, but when I go over to Montpelier, for whatever reason, it seems like there's so much less pressure on me. I'm just there to race, and there's no expectations. I don't think Limeland does much wrong. I feel like over at Montpelier over the years has been maybe slightly less politics, and that's not really putting Lima down. They have their deal and their focus and the reason they're there, and I've always supported their teams out there racing and the school and university and but something about Montpelier, I just I get on that track, man, I get all juiced up and you'd think I was a weightlifter. You just took 2 steroid shots. We're going to get behind the wheel when I pull out in that racetrack. I love that racetrack over there. I really have. It's been through different promoters, and now I think it's settling down. Ryan Sutter bought it, and he's really making strides. That place is really getting popular over there now. And he's even got an old tour race coming back here in a couple of weeks over there. And I just no rhyme or reason. Nobody's really done anything wrong at Limeland. I really love it over there at Montpelier.
Well, I'm glad you said that, and you've been making my job easier because you're kind of leading into every one of these questions that I have listed
I
in
talk a
front.
lot. That's
So,
what I do, man. I talk and I blow up engines. That's my two things in 24 and 25. That's what I do.
so is you've made every race at Limeland for the last 22 plus years?
Yeah. Yeah. When I had my aneurysm deal, um, Lima was already done. And when they had to park me on that deal in 2018, I've got some steel rods and a bunch of hardware in my right leg from eating a dry ice shaft from testing Tune Day at Lima Land in 2001. But we've gotten by that over the years, and yeah, we've managed to support Lima Land since the new owners took it over.
I always tell people this. Um, Really, the opportunity for that to be one of the premier facilities, quarter mile size facilities in the country. It's a great facility. And I've been there a few times this season, and I feel like things are going smooth for them this season. It seems like the direction that they're heading to this season in particular is in the right direction. Do you notice anything as a driver there this season compared to
Yeah,
maybe some in the past?
yeah, I think so. I started seeing some headway last year, and I've seen they made more improvements this year, and they're trying. It's not from lack of effort over there. It really isn't. I've known some of the people that organize and run that speedway for years, and it is not from lack of effort. They're trying to make things better for the fan and for the racer, as far as the track surface and the games during intermission stuff with the kids, and they're more interaction. They brought Jerry Keyser in there as an announcer, which I think is a huge add. You know what I mean? He keeps the fans involved. He's racing knowledgeable. Once again, I'm showing my age because Bobby Keyser was the guy that got me into racing, and that was his dad.
Yeah.
And I drank a lot of beers with that guy back in the day. But no, I think they've made vast improvements. I love the fact that they started qualifying us because that pill draw, I hate the pill draw. I really, if I screw up in qualifying, that's shame on me. I control my own destiny from then on. But if I show up 4 weeks in a row and draw a tail in my heat race, it is tougher than ever to make up for that now.
Mm-hmm.
And then they finally got on board and started qualifying, and yeah, they've done a lot. I think the track has, it started out kind of one lane, but it's kind of turned into multiple lanes lately. They're really working to try and figure that track surface out, what they have to work with. And I got to give them kudos on that. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think there's been vast strides to try and improve things out there.
Yeah, I was there a couple times. One for was the USAC Midwest Thunder Midgets for the Mike Striker Memorial. The other one was when they had Boss. Boss was there, and it actually started raining during that feature race.
Mm-hmm.
But that was that was some of the best racing I'd seen in a while.
Right. I remember that night. Yeah, I think that's the night my stock car broke.
Yeah, I think you're
Yeah.
right. I think you're right.
Or leading, that was the Keyser Memorial, wasn't it?
I believe you're correct.
I was on the pole, leading on the first lap, dumped the throttle going to 3, and all heck broke loose underneath the car, tore everything up. And yeah, that's my only DNF. But that's all it takes to knock you out of the points runs with against these people these days.
Yeah.
You can't misstep at all. You have to be consistent.
You talked about the medical issue that you dealt with in 2018. Can you kind of fill us in on that? Like what happened with that?
Well, what happened was originally we found it was in 2016. I had an unfortunate incident. Limelight guy got in my left rear coming out of turn 2, and I flipped 4 times down the backstretch, and it tore up the car real good. And, I had a concussion, was bruised up a little bit. I walked away from it. But about a month later, car owner thought it'd be a good idea if I get a wellness check. I had a few concussions, and so I did, and that's when my doctor, she heard something wasn't right, so she sent me to a cardiologist, and they found I had an aneurysm. It was 4.9 when they found it at 16, and he wasn't willing to do anything with it till it was 5.5, and he wanted me to stop doing some of the things I was doing. That was out of the question. Racing, working out, I work out 3-4 times a week, running my shop, working my job. I told him none of that was going to stop until he's ready to fix this. So I carried on with my life for 2 years where they monitored it every 6 months. And then 2018, it started getting a little bigger. And finally, in early August, there it jumped up, and they parked me. I had to quit working and everything. There was a slight insurance discrepancy. I like to tell people my health insurance company tried to kill me, but they probably don't have nothing against me, But he referred me up to Cleveland Clinic, and they said they were too expensive. Wanted to look around, and the fact of life was about 3 or 4 weeks later, pardon my French, but shit hit the fan. And my wife got me up to Cleveland's ER, and yeah, we just about crossed the Rainbow Bridge there, and they finally did an 8-hour surgery and put me back together. They saved my valve, but I have a fake aorta because it was so distorted, so my arch is all prosthetic, and yeah, it was some of the hardest things I've done for the next 4 or 5 months after that to come back from that. And mentally, I still deal with some stuff. I have some PTSD now, and things going on upstairs. But between my circle of people, family and friends, everybody looks out for me pretty decent, and I get by in life just fine. There's been some slight discussion of disability. I don't want nothing to do with that. I just want people to leave me alone and keep doing my thing.
Yeah. It's. I can't imagine how you felt when you got the news that you could go back to just doing your normal thing and getting in the race car.
I wanted to go back a month and a half earlier, but the cardiologist wouldn't let me. But I will tell you this, though. I've seen now, their protocol back then was 5.5 or bigger before they operate. I almost died. They said I had hours to live when she got me up there, and mine was 5.6. And now I've seen, because I'm on some different open heart surgery websites and stuff and chats, and I've seen where now they've moved it up to 5.0. Now everyone's 5.0 or bigger, now they're willing to operate. And I think that's awesome, because I don't know. I bet back in the day they never checked anything big for cause of death. Right. Oh, he had a heart attack. Well, how many of those times was an aneurysm?
Sure.
And people are much more aware of it now. Now that they moved up, that's pretty awesome to hear.
Yeah, it definitely is, and I'm glad everything worked out for you, and glad we get to see you back doing what you love to do. I'm not
usually the fastest car out there, but whether I'm first, 10th, or 20th, I've been told I put on a pretty good show. So we try,
That's right. So my question for you to follow up is there anything that you haven't raced that you want to?
I think these late models are interesting. I've won in limited late models. I won in super stocks, bombers, Model Ice, those little legend cars. I've won a lot of different, but I've never drove a late model. I think those things are super cool, man. They always get my attention. Short track, big track, doesn't matter. Even if it was a crate late model, I think that'd be pretty cool. My budget will never allow it, but if there's ever a wish list for something to drive that I haven't, it'd be a late model probably.
I gotta believe there's somebody out there that'll let you drive their late model.
Well, that would be awesome, and I would do my best to oblige if anybody ever asked. But I'm not the type to go out and ask for rides. I enjoy what I'm doing, and I drove for a lot of the different people's cars over the years, and I always got positive feedback. And I try to help other people setups and stuff. And about 3 years ago, I drove a car. My car broke over at Montpelier, and a guy named Jason Jones had a 27 modified. He said, "Hey, man, jump my car." So I jumped Taylor Fisher. We started 21st, finished 8th with it. And I gave him a big old list of stuff should change, thought would help the car. He was so set back by that. And he started running a little better after that. And we still talk today, and just stuff like that. You try to give back a little bit. I have a lot of experience. I can shake a car down and give a lot of info, and I'm not shy about it. I'll share everything with everybody. If someone comes up and asks me a question, gear run or whatever, I'm completely open with it because that's what it's all about.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Tony, I'm not too proud. If anybody has a late model out there that Tony Anderson can drive, get with him.
I mean, that's one of the things I haven't drove. I forgot Andy's truck. I won some races in his dirt truck, his 4-cylinder dirt truck, and like I said, 7 different divisions. But I've never drove a late model. It's the one thing I've never driven. And some people say limited late models are like late. Now they don't have that big 14-inch tire on the car, and they don't. They're a little more limited on horsepower. But even those crate lates put on a really good race there if you watch them. And to me, a good race is a good race. It's not follow leaders, not one guy half tracking everybody. It's a wide racetrack, 2-3 wide racing, and that's what it's all about.
Yep. I don't care what car it is. If you're giving me that kind of racing,
yep,
that's what I'm there for.
Yeah, I've never raced a compact, but I've watched Aaron put on 2 and 3 wide shows.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Crown Vics. I've seen Crown Vics at Lawrenceburg put on a pretty good show.
Yep, I've seen that too. Actually, I've seen Crown Vics go one direction on track and come out for the feature and go the other direction on the track. That's something you can't do with the cars I drive.
Right. So to follow that one up, do you have a bucket list track that you'd like to race on, or an event that you'd like to run in before you're finally done racing?
Man, I don't know. That's tough because I've raced a lot of different tracks over the years, and in 2021, I finally won this one of these big gators from down there in Florida.
Nice.
And
Very nice.
I traveled down there for 10 years, not be able to win. That's such a tough deal down there. A lot of money involved, a lot of technology, a lot of smart people walking around. And we finally won one of those. But man, if I had a track on a bucket list, I'm probably going to say, honestly, probably Fairbury over in Illinois. Okay. And I say that because I've watched it on TV a lot. It's a short track, which is a lot more of my game than the bigger tracks. And I just think the racing over there is spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never raced there. And, a guy asked me last year if I'd go to the Dome and race if they would. But I don't think my wallet could afford that. That's a show for the fans. They replace parts and body panels all week long, And I think I'd have to sit that one out. That's not my thing. I don't like to spend a lot of money like that.
I hear you. All right, so we're about to wrap this up, and before we do that, I've got 10 questions for you. I'd like you to answer as quickly as you can.
All right, so I'll put my glasses on to answer these. That way I'm smarter. At least I look smarter.
All right, question number 1. Celebrity crush growing up?
Jennifer Aniston. Friends. Rachel.
Yep, I'm there with you. Favorite cartoon?
Bugs Bunny.
Do you have a favorite pro wrestler?
I haven't watched wrestling in a while, but back in the day, it was the Ultimate Warrior.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Do you have a favorite song or a favorite album that you like to listen to?
I like a lot of Eric Church, Jelly Roll. I like listening to rap. I'm kind of open.
Okay. Nice, nice, nice. Do you have a favorite movie?
Probably Lethal Weapons, all of them.
Okay, okay. Favorite vacation spot?
Well, I don't usually get a vacation, but me and my wife got married almost 10 years ago down in Key Largo, Florida. And
Okay.
that was pretty nice. Got married right there on the beach.
Nice. I like that. I like that.
So I'll count that as my favorite vacation spot.
Yeah, I've got that question in here, and I think pretty much everybody gives me the same answer because you guys are all racing all summer long, and it's hard to
Right.
get the vacation when you're racing. So
Yep.
I hear you on that one. Something few people know about you.
Few people know about me. I used to be a track star in high school.
What did you run?
Mile, 2 mile, half mile, quarter mile.
Man,
Did all right. Held my own.
nice, nice. If you could own one car, you get home from work, you hit the garage door opener, the garage door goes up. What's the car sitting in the garage?
1969 Chevelle Super Sport.
Certain color?
Midnight blue.
Nice. Very nice. Do you have a go-to meal?
Pizza.
Okay.
Pizza has got to be my favorite food.
Is there a certain place you got to get your pizza from, or is it, I mean,
No, I'm open. There's a lot of great pizza places. Some are better than others, but I'm not even going to try and name it because if you say pizza, there's no such thing as a bad pizza to me.
right,
You know what I mean?
yeah. Pizza and donuts.
Ooh,
Sign me up.
glazed donuts, dip in a little milk. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Got me there too. Yep.
When I retire, I'm going to travel the country and I'm going to try all the glazed donuts I can.
I love glazed donuts.
Yeah.
I go to Rogers Automotive every Friday morning. She always buys, his wife runs office there. She always buys me a glazed donut and strawberry milk.
Nice.
My
Nice.
breakfast of champions.
That's a good way to start a Friday.
Yep.
Funniest story that you have either from the track or the shop or on the road?
I've got lots of them, but the one I will share, I haven't told it, it's been a few years. So Lawrenceburg's currently a big track. Before it was a big track, it was a short track. I won a lot of races down there. Try down there every Saturday for years. And at the end of the night, I'd get hooked up with another racer named Steve Gaines. And we would supply water balloons, and he had a slingshot. Two people would hold it, and I'd shoot balloons. We'd shoot them all across the track, shoot them at people. Well, one night we were shooting really far, all the way across the track, trying to hit people in the pay line as a concession stand. And one went up into the stands, and we watched somebody fall down, and we all got real quiet. And the people started heading our way on a four-wheeler. So I'm like, okay, everybody starts gathering, putting the balloons away. They come over there, and by chance, they were all laughing about it. But my slingshot hit a lady's prosthetic leg and knocked it off in the stands. And that was talk of the town for months at Lawrenceburg, Indiana.
Oh,
So that's got to be one of my many, many favorite stories. And we're talking 200 yards away.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. And for a month, I rolled in that track, and people would bring that up.
Oh, I can only imagine. Man, you might hear that. You might have somebody ask you to repeat that story again here soon.
It was something, I got to tell you.
Oh man. Well, Tony Anderson, I appreciate you coming on. Before we finally close shop up here, where can everybody follow you? Do you have any merchandise? And do you have sponsors that you'd like to thank?
We have a limited amount of shirts that we're going to soon get that we'll keep in the treasure, just a limited amount. But there's a website on my racing Facebook page, TonyAndersonRacing.com, that people can order hoodies, shirts, whatever, with our new stuff, our updated sponsors and everything. For a budgeted team like us, I just can't afford the overhead to go out and buy a whole bunch of shirts and stock them in the treasure. So we try to stock a few, and we set up that website a few years ago so people could get on there and buy whatever they wanted to buy with our logos, our names on it. And that, a percentage of that money goes back to us. It helps us with the race team. stuff of that nature.
It's a good way to go about doing that. So sponsors that you'd like to thank.
We've had some good sponsors for a long time. I actually picked up a couple new ones just this year. One of them just come to us a couple weeks ago. And it was great timing because we put it on the car the week I won at Limelight, so it worked out good. But Mid-American Cleaning Contractors, Texas Roadhouse has been with me for a long time. Rogers Automotive Repair out of Lima, Ohio. Web Insurance, Quality Mechanical Services here in Lima, plumbing and heating. All Service Class is one of our new sponsors this year. Bergen Construction, Bigsby Coffee out of Lima, Ohio. Charles Lehman Funeral Home Services, Simplified Flooring out of Elida, Ohio. Graymeyer Painting Services out of Lima. BSW, they're based out of Lima. And then, of course, TNT Auto Repair, that's my business. And I don't know if anybody does more than me and my people do for the team. So, but all of these sponsors are well appreciated, and we've had some followers for a long time, and I really appreciate that too. People just love racing and good racing, and we don't go out there and beat and bang and tear our stuff up a lot, and it's all about respect.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Tony Anderson, driver of the number 22 stock car and modified, thanks for coming on.
I appreciate it, man. And if I had to thank anybody else, I'd thank my longtime car owner, Troy Bridenball. And then I want to thank Dylan Wooding. He runs the 3W Modified, and him and his family have done a lot for me over the years. I mentioned Dittman earlier, loaning us a motor, and the Rushes, Jesse and Zach Rush, loaning us an engine. And I just appreciate everybody out there that follows racing. Even if it's not me, just follow racing and support it, man. A lot of people love it. So just keep following it and helping it grow and thrive. Thanks for having me.
Definitely. Not a problem. Guys, this is Josh with the Dirt Court Jesters podcast, and we hope to see you at the track.